This is a Chinese UCAV, the GJ-11 Sharp Sword. It has a large degree of autonomy, it is designed for attack and ISR, it has cooperative features, and it can operate from land and from carriers. And United States, they don't have anything like that. Not even close. Hi, welcome. I am Gas, and this is Millennium 7.
First one was the Sharp Sword, which is that big delta wing flying wing drone that is essentially a strike aircraft without a pilot. This is a capability that the Americans did pursue, but they gave up on it.
Before starting, 2 points. 1. I will try not to use the term EI in this video because it is so abused that has lost any specific meaning. 2. This video is sponsored by you. Yes, you who sold...
为了早点回家剪视频，我在瓜子二手车买了台特斯拉，才花了9万9。瓜子每台车都有官方检测，电车3电系统都有原厂质保，电池还有100天回购保障。瓜子最近上架了几千台便宜的个人直卖车，你也去看看吧。买二手车，瓜子有保障。
Channel by any of the other means available. You are absolute stars. I will never thank you enough. And if you are considering supporting the channel, all the links are in the description. So, let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away on the other side of the ocean from where I live, there were 2 programs for stealth autonomous drones, the X-45 and the X-47. The X-45 was built by Boeing on DARPA's commission, and it was a technology demonstrator. It flew from 2002 and 2006 with considerable success. For example, it demonstrated how it was possible for autonomous aircraft to collaborate. The 2 prototypes were capable of autonomously deciding which one was best placed for an attack. The X-47 was built by Northrop Grumman upon DARPA's and US Navy's requirements. It flew between 2011 and 2015, and its purpose was mind-boggling. Its purpose was to demonstrate how an autonomous drone could operate from an aircraft carrier. And the aircraft delivered. It demonstrated the capability of landing, operating and taking off from an actual carrier at sea, without interfering with the rest of the carrier wing. So by 2015, the United States had conducted 2 very successful experimental UCAV programs, and nobody gave a crap about them ever after. Don't get me wrong, there is a lot of activity about unmanned aircraft and UCAVs ongoing in the United States, but this specific category of UCAVs, autonomous flying wings with a penetration and attack role, has been totally neglected. I mean, there is the secretive RQ-170 in operation, but it is just an ISR platform, and it is very difficult to figure out why there is no interest. This kind of UCAS would fit extremely well in the American doctrine. The War Zone, the online magazine, had the possibility to pose this exact question to General David Olvin, the Air Force Chief of Staff, and frankly, I didn't understand the answer. It sort of sounded like babbling to me. In China, on the contrary, this concept and this configuration has been developed to the point where it is on the verge of becoming fully operational. I'm obviously talking about the GJ-11 Lijian, which means sharp sword. The GJ-11 is an unmanned reconnaissance and attack aerial vehicle designed by the China Aviation Industry Corporation Shenyang Aircraft Design Institute and manufactured by the China Aviation Industry Corporation Hongdu Aviation Industry Group, which I know it is a mouthful, I won't mention this anymore. The project began in 2009 and the first flight happened in November 2013, at the time in an experimental configuration with dark, rather absorbing paint and the long pitot tube characteristic of all prototypes. It was presented to the public in the military parade of 2019. The aircraft is powered by a derated and non-afterburning variant of the WS-13 engine, the same as the JF-17. The engine has a bypass ratio of 0.57 to 1 and a thrust of about 51 kilonewton. The prototypes had an exposed non-stealthy nozzle that has later been replaced by a two-dimensional lozenge-shaped nozzle, clearly for stealth reasons. The aircraft configuration is pretty standard for a stealth flying wing. There is a blended fuselage with swept-back wings with a relatively moderate sweep angle. This is clearly subsonic configuration. The most recent pictures show a pretty clean design, but from the prototype we know that there is a large dorsal dielectric fairing, probably containing communication systems. The unit shown at the parade in 2019 was likely a mock-up, and we couldn't see any sensor housing, but they're surely there, otherwise the aircraft would be useless. In fact, there is a curious slide that emerged on social media showing how the aircraft is using LiDARs and cameras to follow the ground crew gestures for taxiing or moving on a carrier deck. I think the MQ-25 does the same, but I'm not sure. The performance is clearly not in the public domain, at least not yet, but the estimates I could find converge toward a wingspan of 14 meters, a length of 10 meters, and a maximum takeoff weight of 10 tons with a maximum speed of 1,000 km per hour. And the latter, if true, likely means a cruise speed around 900 km per hour, that is 480 knots. The only range figure we have is a generic 4,000 kilometers, which I believe is the ferry range. In this case, the combat radius should be around 1,500 kilometers. This is a ballpark estimate based on the fact that this kind of drones should not maneuver much in their missions and do not carry external payloads. In fact, the only payload seen on the GJ-11 is contained in two ventral weapon bays. Each one was shown with 4 small diameter bombs of the FT series. These are satellite-guided bombs, and the presence of 8 of them hints to a payload of around 1,000 kilos, even if various estimates place the max payload at 2,000 kilos. By the way, did you know that the Chinese have 5 families of guided munitions? The United States has basically Paveway and JDAMs. China has FT, LS, YZ, YL, and TG series, all in service in various capacities. We often see the Chinese aircraft in the pictures that surface in the public domain with no weapons, or just air-to-air weapons, or non-guided weapons. Many interpret this as under development, but nothing could be farther from the truth. There is in fact a well-developed ecosystem of guided weapons with different features, sensors and guidance that makes countering all of them quite a complex task. I find this a fascinating subject, at least for us Westerners, but it is for another time. Please let me know in the comments below what do you think about this subject, and let me know if you already knew this fact. After years of secretive development and testing, the GJ-11 has been seen flying more and more often. This is a clear sign that several units are flying and the beginning of the operational life should not be too far away. And if you don't trust the videos that surface on the Chinese internet because you believe they are accurately calibrated propaganda, well, we have official videos and satellite photos. There is an interesting video of the GJ-11 flying with a J-20 in a configuration potentially similar to the one envisioned for a loyal wingman like the CCA. Performance-wise, the J-20 is much superior to the GJ-11, and the GJ-11 was never seen with air-to-air weapons. However, the American CCA project is not producing aircraft with the same performance as the fighters it is supposed to operate with as well. Moreover, we have pictures of a dual-seater J-20, which is in testing now, whose role could be a guidance platform for drones. The second member of the crew could have the task of coordinating several drones flying with the aircraft. This seems to be a different path from the one taken by the United States with the loyal wingman, and it is difficult to say now what makes more sense. There are also satellite pictures of the drone at Malan Air Base, which is the Chinese drone town, where it seems, according to some analysts, that the aircraft are operating in couples. We know that the Chinese have worked a lot on swarming tactics and control, but for copters. It may well be that this technology is now percolating in the UCAV sector. However, the most interesting development is the adaptation of the drone for carrier use. This was already suspected since the mock-up shown in 2019 featured a two-wheel nose gear, which is necessary for carrier use because it fits the bar that engages in the catapult shuttle. More recently, a mock-up has been seen on the ground carrier model in Fujian, which is used for all sorts of tests, including aircraft taxiing and parking tests. A couple of GJ-11 have been spotted near the construction site of the Type 76 light carrier, the revolutionary amphibious assault ship that features a catapult, an electromagnetic catapult, and arrestor gears. They are probably mock-ups as well for testing, but this means that the Type 76, with its unique design, is expected to fly the GJ-11. And in these years, we have seen many ship models and artists' impressions showing the GJ-11 as part of the carrier wing. Some sources, which I don't fully trust, are speaking of the initial production of the land-based variant, but I really can't confirm this. The only supporting evidence is the increased number of sightings of the aircraft in flight. So, it is abundantly clear that the GJ-11 is considered an extremely important aircraft, and the Chinese have invested a lot in this platform. And it only makes sense to have stealth attack platforms that could execute on a smaller scale the type of missions that the United States Air Force reserves to the B-2 or to the upcoming B-21. So, at the end of the day, what is the reason why the United States is not investing in anything comparable to the GJ-11? So, the Warzone is giving an answer to this question. The Warzone is an excellent online magazine. I reference their articles all the time, but the explanation that they have given in this case is childish. They say that since there may be moral concerns about a totally autonomous system, the United States is focusing on keeping the humans in the loop. The US adversaries may not have the same concern, and the US may be losing an opportunity, but this is what the United States does. I'm sorry, this is the usual American attitude, we are the good guys, yada 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 yada. More seriously, I believe that there are two situations in play here. The first is that the United States most likely hasn't developed the same software technology as the Chinese did. Those who are familiar with the Chinese industrial base know what I'm talking about. In the last few years, they focused on lightweight, vertical, industry-specific intelligence systems rather than on the large frontier models that are supposed to be the ultimate answer to anything. In this specific case, I suspect that the United States is trailing several years behind. Not that the disadvantage couldn't be recovered, but there is no sign so far, at least in my opinion. Moreover, consider how long it is taking to perfect the MQ-25 or how cautious is the CCI developments with this concept of increments initially made of very small numbers. Considering when projects like Skyborg started, the software should be in a more advanced condition, should be almost ready. We should have news of otherworldly synthetic tests that blew a dozen of Chinese air forces out of the sky. But we don't. The other situation is more political. An organization dominated by pilots won't make pilots obsolete. And just to stay on the safe side, let's not even research systems that could potentially make the pilots obsolete. I have seen this many times, even in the corporate world, where the interest of a stakeholder who holds some power take precedence on the interests of the organization as a whole. This attitude is quite far from the Chinese culture, and the very heavy dose of pragmatism that they use in everything they do has probably set aside any concern, if there were any. So at the end of the day, this is a very human behavior, and humans obviously always take precedence. And with this consideration, we end our video. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.
最后多说一句，瓜子9万9就能买特斯拉，买二手车瓜子有保障。
This is a ballpark estimate. Ballpark.